I think we've spent a long time talking about photography and art. I think today it's about time for us to focus our attention onto a photo itself, right? We don't try to make it an art. We just want to explore the potential, the impact it can bring about, right, to the society, to culture, to all walks of life. So the social scene is our focus. And coming out of this social scene at the end of our lecture, maybe we can go back to that question again. Um, how does photography become a form of art? So the social aspect, the social function of photography, of camera. Well, it's simple. Documentary. To document things, to record things, right? Because we believe that um, it's a function. It's born to record things, to reflect in the reality. Social documentary. What is that? Well, cameras were used by reformers in industrialized nations to improve inequitable social conditions due to the ability of the camera to produce a truthful verification of facts, reflection of reality, and as an inexpensive reproducible medium. The primary goal was the intention of the photographer to bring about social change and change conditions. So photography, taking photos, is not merely in this case when it comes to when it's put into a certain context, right? For example, the war. If I put the camera in a war, if the camera is used to document the war, the function of it is no longer merely recording the war, recording the scenes, documentary of things. But it's more proactive. It has a more proactive function, which is to bring about social change and change conditions. To cameras or photos may be able to stop the war, may be able to change poverty, may be able to bring about, to bring to the politicians' attention certain social problems that they can go ahead and address. That is photography. That is the power of photography. And I've found some excerpts from our textbook talking about how this long path of exploring the social, the potential in that photography could have in our society. The history of it, for example, the Photo League, individual photographers, they formed this social photo league to separate themselves out of the pictorialists, right? Artists, photographers trying to abide to the rule that traditional art the standard of traditional art offer them. Uh, there are a group of photographers. Some of them call themselves a photo successionist. They separate themselves out and claim that photograph itself, without the need to abide to the rule of traditional art, without the need to kick the tripod, to blur or damage the lens. Photography by itself, right? As long as you capture the moment, is enough to be an independent form of art. Doesn't need to be judged by the standard shared with painting, standards shared in sculptures. So it's in itself a form of art, and that form of art, that form, in a lot of ways, is the social form. I'm gonna explain to you why and how. The social form. This is during the Depression in the early 20th century in the United States. Lewis Hahn. He went to factories because this is an area where we're right after the industrial revolution, and factories that industrialized with all the machines, but this labors, the cheap labors, the lower class or the working class, they've been exploited. The labor's been exploited, and this is especially revealing during the Depression, the Great Depression in the United States. And Lewis Hahn went to all these factories and documented or took pictures of these workers, working in front of the machine by themselves. No one to come and converse with them. Nobody cares about their existence or how they live their life, how poor, how difficult they live their life, but just keep working for me, keep working for the factory, right? And Lewis Hahn saw that inequality and came into the factories and situate the workers in front, right? Take portraits of them in front of the machines, and they are like the cog, right? They're just like a cog in the machine, working and working. Them being human being, right? The fact that these workers, they too are human beings, this fact is being minimalized, is being ignored, if I can say that. And not just cheap labors, but child labors. For example, in this 10-year-old spinner in North Carolina cotton mill, right? Again, Lewis Hahn situates the girl, this 10-year-old girl, right next to the machine, the spinner, and took a portrait of her. And this is a close-up, right? A close-up of this portrait, and kind of a challenge you to think about the relationship between this child who should be in school, this child, and the machine right next to her. If this is a misplacement of human being, misplacement of the machine, or what happened, right? So this kind of combination, the human being and the machine, challenges you to think, if is this accurate? Is this fair? Is this humane way of doing things? Then what's the impact? The impact is that these photos worked as evidence for later passing the child labor laws. And there's the publication of the Man at Work book on workers of the New York skyscrapers. So these photos really had an impact in the society and helped change the law to better protect the children especially during the Depression, the Great Depression at the time. The proactive function of photography. Photography is not just, some kind of entertainment, taking portraits with all the props, showing someone's identity. Photography has its own power. And in this case, it's the social power to bring change to the law. Another photograph of a girl standing right next to the spinner. And it's a series of all these photographs, in fact 5,000 of them, that catch the attention of the lawmakers and make the change. And these reflection of or if you these reflection of the reality, right, had the change. So my question here up to this point is photography. Is it reflection or is it interpretation? And for example, a poster like this advocating for the banning of the child labor, making human junk poster in 1915. So Louis Hahn photographed of he traveled across the United States and photographed children in different factories, thousands of these children, and created this scene, a collection of this scene as an interpretation to challenge the Congress to pass child labor law. So social documentation, right? That's one very power of photography, right? Because social documentation, for photography to have that function, it's rooted in a context. Without a context, right, there's not a child labor problem across the United States at the time. Louis Hahn probably would not go to different factories to take photographs of all these children. Even if he did, these photographs wouldn't really have their voice heard, or wouldn't really catch much attention at the time, because if you bring these photographs out of the context, they would become meaningless. So social documentation, the social power of photography. What's important about it? It's that it's rooted in a context. If you do your homework, right, later for our project, you will do a photojournalist and some kind of recording or interpretation of certain things in the society, of yourself, or of anything. Pay attention to that context. Make that context clear and ask yourself what the context is for our photographs to speak out. Dorothy Lane, the migrant mother. This photograph, it's so famous that you probably have seen it somewhere in one way or another. So today we want to examine it. Why is it famous? I want you to spend time looking at it. Well, actually, let me move backward a little bit. I want to show you how Dorothy Lane approached this woman, and then you will have time to approach this photograph yourself. Well, first of all, a little bit background about Dorothy Lane. He was hired as part of this big project, huge project that the government, the federal government, the Farm Security Association, during the Great Depression, the government wanted to know what's happening, what the difficulties, the poverty that especially the West, but the entire United States, the people from across the United States are facing, right? So that they can send the help over to help people out of the poverty, but